In Genesis chapter 18, we find a story about Abraham and Sarah. In this story, Abraham and Sarah are now quite old, and they have pitched their tents, and 3 strangers come up to their camp, and Abraham greets them. This is a tradition of hospitality that we read about a lot in the Hebrew Scriptures. Greets them and puts out the best food and feeds them. And as they are having dinner, one of the men says to Abraham, "I will be back through here in a year, and when I return, your wife Sarah will have a son." Now, Sarah is also very old, decades past childbearing. And she's been hanging out at the opening of her tent, and she hears this man talking, and she chuckles to herself, perhaps wondering, does he really understand how all this childbirth stuff works? And later, she does become pregnant. And when she has a son, she calls him Isaac, which means laughter. And so she says this, "God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me." Generally, I think we don't always go first to the idea of laughter as a spiritual practice. We don't maybe strive to respond to laughter when we reach a difficult challenge. We might instead think of patience or of justice or of humility. But laughter is nevertheless a deeply and profoundly useful response, especially, I think, in today's world. Now, the Jewish mystics who we have been talking about recently have a really unique interpretation of this story, where Sarah laughs twice. They say this: first, she looks at herself and her limitations of her own body, and she laughs, and in that laugh, she makes space for the impossible. She creates a space in her womb. This, they say, is the laughter of creation. And then when Isaac is born, she laughs again, and others laugh with her. And when they laugh, they heal. And so what she demonstrates to them is the healing power of laughter. In the space that is created by laughter, the pain of the world is diminished. We make room for the possibility that suffering can be transformed to well-being. And these rabbis go on to teach this. Similarly, at the beginning of creation, God, who created the world through joy and laughter, opens up a space in which creation can unfold, and that space is first filled with God's laughter, and then the world emerges from that. Sarah's first laugh gave her the strength to open up space, a space within her in that darkness where she could see the possibility of new creation. And then when she laughs again, the laugh of healing, of finding her way to happiness, love, and ultimately to God. In order for us to find God, we would do the same. We have to create space and fill it with laughter. I want to end with a very short story set in modern times. There was a woman who lived in a small town, and she had had a very, very difficult life. And for many years had held in her body disappointment. It had filtered right into her bones. But people who saw her and the others who came to know her, what they saw was strength and faithfulness. And rarely did they see that pain that she also harbored. But one day she was sitting around with some of her women friends, and a woman told a really silly story about something that had happened at the grocery store. And this woman began to laugh. And the laugh sounded very strange to her. It had been a very long time since she laughed. But her heaviness began to lift. And then what surprised her is she continued to laughed until she cried. For that moment, her burdens didn't disappear, but they loosened their grip. The laughter made room for breath. It reminded her that sorrow is not the whole story. Later, she realized that laughter did not mean denying her pain. It had helped heal it. It had opened a window in a room that had been closed for far too long. This woman discovered that laughter can mark the turning point between despair and hope. Sometimes laughter is the first sign that the heart is beginning to trust again.